It's Monday, February 10th, 2025, and coming up, President Trump loves the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl absolutely adored President Trump. We are so back, baby. But on the downside, you, the American taxpayers, are still being royally ripped off. And now that you know that, it's going to be really hard for the Democrats to put that dirty little genie back in the bottle. WFA, waste, fraud, abuse, WTF. Plus, women's sports will once again be for women, and a very small group on the fringe are upset. Yes, the Rainbow Mafia folks are on an island, and it's much smaller than they think it is. And this, California, you'll be shocked, has gone full-blown commie. And turns out the catastrophic wildfires are giving the Cali Dem regime a faster vehicle to get there. Jillian Michaels joins me to break it all down. And then last but not least, CBS did us dirty with that deceptive Kamala edit, but I'll tell you the real tragedy with all of that in my final thoughts. Plus, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the show on YouTube at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. The show starts now. Football's officially over. Before we get back into the nitty-gritty of politics, I just want to say the fact that President Trump was adored last night while the anointed one, Taylor Swift, was seemingly yesterday's news, well, that's perhaps one of the best indicators since November 5th that we are so back, baby. I'm here for it, and it's so apparent the vibe has massively shifted. It's not cool to be an ultra-liberal anymore, and maybe that's why the Democrats are so salty. Well, that and the fact that their money laundering operation is getting exposed. Americans, your money is not just being wasted, not just being abused, but it's being looted out from underneath of you. Now, sometimes looting looks obvious, like in the George Floyd mostly peaceful summer of love, or really in any given day in California. But there's also another less obvious type of looting that's going on and has been going on for, well, decades. It's not BLM, it's USAID. And now that Elon Musk and Doge are exposing all of the utter bull crap, well, the folks who have long enjoyed essentially laundering money under the guise of aid, they're really getting hot and bothered over it. In fact, it's a kind of rage we have never seen before. It's feral.
We will not shut up. We will stand up. We will speak up. We will rise up. It is time, as the African spiritual says, for us to lift every voice.
What we not gonna do is stand around while they pull this that they trying to pull right now.
We have got to tell Elon Musk, nobody elected your ass.
We are going to fight this fight. I am going to stand with you in this fight.
I am so tired of these billionaire boys and their grubby little hands grabbing at everything. Damn it, shut down the city. We are at war.
There is an economic coup happening right here in the Treasury.
Seems like a fun group of people, doesn't it? But folks, now that their scheme has been exposed, they suddenly want to protect the Constitution, uphold the law, and even shut down the government?
Yeah, I mean, what we are witnessing is a constitutional crisis. We are seeing an executive branch that has decided that they are no longer going to abide by the Constitution in honoring Congress's role in the creation of the agencies, in their role in deciding where money is allocated.
Are you prepared to shut down the government, to join Democratic colleagues who want to stand in the way of keeping the government open?
Well, you have to look at what the Trump administration is doing right now. They are simply trying to, they are simply trying to dismantle the government. So yes, look, if we have to take steps to be able to hold them accountable, use the leverage that we have to force it, I cannot support efforts that will continue this lawlessness that we're seeing when it comes to this administration's actions.
Get a load of that, y'all. The same people who want open borders, sanctuary cities, and gun confiscation are now trying to convince you that keeping Doge and Elon Musk out of their messy bookkeeping is somehow the noble and valiant cause. That and spending $20 million on flippin' Sesame Street in Iraq.
Is funding Sesame Street a judicious use of soft power?
Well, Michael, the way you put it is the way I hope folks considering your poll today will think about it. This isn't just funding a kids show for children, millions of children in countries like Iraq. It's a show that helps teach values, helps teach public health, helps prevent kids from dying from dysentery and disease, and helps push values like collaboration, peacefulness, cooperation in a society where the alternative is ISIS, extremism, and terrorism. And to your point, it's pennies on the dollar. The U.S. Department of Defense has an annual budget of about $850 billion. USAID was spending about $30 billion. It is a small proportion of our total federal spending. And as Joe and I would often say, it's not just soft power, it's smart power.
Huh. You know, I hate to sound harsh, but as long as American children are struggling academically and reading below grade level, I could not give one hoot about funding cartoons for foreign hostile nations in hopes that Big Bird will suddenly make them rethink that whole death to America worldview. But this is the hill Democrats are willing to die on, wasting your money on absolute crap. This is how out of touch they are with real America. But don't just take my word for it. Donald Trump has his highest approval rating ever. So proceed with caution, Democrats. You are on an island and the tide is rising. Joining me now to discuss all of this and so much more is host of the Keeping It Real podcast. She always keeps it real, Jillian Michaels. All right, Jillian, I want to talk about all of this deep, heavy stuff with the money, what I consider a money laundering operation. But first, I have to go a little bit back. I have to go to the Super Bowl, and I have to ask you your initial takeaways on a couple of things. One, Taylor Swift being booed, and two, the halftime performance that is really dividing the internet and social media. So let's start with Taylor Swift. The booing was kind of unavoidably obvious to the viewers. Do you think that that was warranted?
I always want to take the high ground. I think that's an important thing to do. It's definitely a social commentary on how people are feeling. It's a reflection of the psychology that our society they've had enough. They're over it. They're sick of the wokeism. And it's clear that she represents that to a lot of people. But I don't think Taylor Swift is a bad person at all. I think her values are simply different than what the people who are watching the Super Bowl have at this moment in time. But I would always ask that you take the high ground. So I wouldn't approach a cultural shift by beating up on someone personally. But it's definitely indicative of the fact that people are fed up, without question.
Well, I think that in part, some of the Taylor Swift saturation we've experienced in the last couple of years, that actually wasn't a service to Taylor Swift. She didn't ask to be on the Jumbotron constantly. She didn't ask to be the spotlight of football games. She was simply put up there and used because she did get attention. I don't think she asked for it. She doesn't need any extra attention. And I get it that some people are saying she was booed because they were Eagles fans. I think it's a little deeper than that. But as far as rejecting the wokeism, I don't think Taylor Swift is necessarily the most woke entertainer that we have out there on the spectrum of woke. Yes, she endorsed Kamala Harris. Okay, I get it. Kamala lost, right? But as far as the wokeism and the woke messaging, there are many other entertainers that are far more woke than Taylor Swift. So she seems like a nice person. She gives a lot of money to charities, including here in Tennessee, to help victims. She also is very generous with her crew and her production staff. I don't have any personal beef with Taylor Swift. I think let her live her life. I'd prefer she not be so inserted into sports. But you know what? Listen, we've got a lot of problems. I don't think that's the top of the list. Now let's talk about the other outcry, which was Kendrick Lamar. Did you enjoy the halftime performance?
I did. I mean, I didn't read into it the way that other people did. It's like, oh, the racial politics. And I mean, I don't care. I think he's a talented artist. My 12-year-old son loves him. To me, it's like, this is a rapper. Like, we've got so many bigger problems that you already touched upon, that to have outrage over a halftime show that really, it's Kendrick Lamar. Like, we all know his music. He didn't do anything crazy or different. I thought it was good. It didn't move me one way or another.
I think a lot of people don't know a lot of Kendrick Lamar music, so that might be part of it. But I'll tell you, you and I have had these conversations before, and you know that I am a staunch conservative. But when conservatives, particularly on social media, when they feign outrage just for the sake of the outrage, it annoys me, it rubs me the wrong way. Conservatives don't have to take issue with every cultural moment because it's not necessarily what they enjoy. And I actually think that it sets us back. Conservatives are finally cool again. I think Kendrick Lamar is cool. I didn't see any lady bits hanging out. I didn't see really any profanity. I saw the American flag. Yes, it's rap music. It's not everybody's taste, but I was fine with it. And I don't think conservatives have to be mad like, oh, there was no diversity. It's like, really, we're going to do that? It annoyed me. I have to be honest. It annoyed me.
I don't disagree with you. It does get back to the pearl clutching that Democrats do all of the time. It's like, let's take the high road here. Let's focus on the top line issues, things that are really alarming. Like, who cares? And I do think Kendrick is extremely talented, and I have kids, so I've listened to quite a few of his albums quite often, and it was everything that I would expect it to be. I didn't think it was disrespectful. If it was, I certainly missed it. I obviously wasn't paying close enough attention. Yeah, to me, it was fine. It wasn't life-changing. I thought Shakira and J-Lo were the best performance I've seen in the last decade. But I'm looking at it from, there's nothing political there for me, just purely entertainment. I thought it was good. It was fine.
Yeah, I liked the American flags. I'm hoping that that was authentic, like an actual love for America. I don't know if there was a deeper meaning. Some are saying that it was actually a diss on America. I don't think so. But what was unavoidable is that the crowd loved Donald Trump and the players loved Donald Trump. And people were actually saying, like, I like Donald Trump. I'm happy that he's here. Even Travis Kelce ahead of the Super Bowl saying, like, I'm excited to play in front of the president. This is a complete shift from 2017 when it was just full Trump hate and outrage. I think it's important that he was there. I think it's important for him to show up, even for those that didn't vote for him. And I thought that it was refreshing to see people like actually embrace the president, even if they don't necessarily like his politics. They didn't hate on him. And I like to see that. I like to see us maybe coming together a little bit, Jillian. I think it's a positive movement forward.
I totally agree with you. I was very glad to see that he was embraced by pop culture in that moment, and that everybody in the arena definitely seemed to rally around the excitement that he was present. And that is a good thing. I think most of us are seeing him in a very different way because we are seeing the world in a very different way. And USAID is a perfect example of that. And I know you're going to get to it. But we're all waking up and we're understanding that a lot of the things he was talking about in the last 8 years where we thought he was insane, there's something very real there. And people are appreciating him as a truth teller. Listen, there's things he's doing that I just sit back and go, I don't know. I'm going to have to wait and see how this plays out. But I trust that his intentions are in the right place. And I think that's what you're seeing now at the Super Bowl. People are saying, all right, I'm glad we're here. Let's all do this. Let's get behind this and let's see where it goes. But it can't get worse. And I really don't think it can.
Yeah, well, going back to that USAID, USAID, whatever people want to call it. So I don't understand Democrats right now. I really don't. I mentioned it in my opening, but they're really digging in on this. And they're like, we don't like Elon. Nobody elected Elon. That's a pretty bold thing to say for a party that protected Joe Biden for 4 years when he wasn't even awake most of the time. So there's that. There's a lot of people that we didn't elect that were running a lot of things. And I can think of quite a few, Fauci being another one. But what's odd to me is that we're seeing all this waste in the American people, whether you're on the left, right, center, or you don't care about politics, you're seeing all the money that you work hard for being sent to foreign countries, not even to help the people of foreign countries, but you're seeing it wasted on absolute crap. But Democrats are like, you know what? I know how we're going to curry favor with the American people that didn't vote for us. We're going to go against Doge and Elon Musk trying to save money for the American people and stop wasting it on ridiculous crap. And this is the hill that they're really willing to die on. I know you have a lot of liberal Democrat friends. Are they outraged that we might cut a little fat?
They're outraged, but about all of the wrong things, because the media that they're watching is saying, oh, Trump's going after the media, and he's trying to control the narrative and the messaging, and he's kicking all of these news outlets out of the press room, and he's putting in all these right-wing outlets, and he's going to starve people in the developing world, and he's destabilizing the globe. They are not seeing the things that you and I are seeing. It is as though they are watching a weather channel that says it's 95 outside without a cloud in the sky, and you and I are watching news that says it is hailing cats and dogs outside. So I have to say, it isn't that they would not be outraged, in my opinion, if they understood what was really going on here, and they certainly don't. And it's because they are watching crap like CNN and MSNBC, and it's just the truth. That is the reality of the situation we're dealing with right now.
Your friends still watch those networks? Because, I have liberal and Democrat friends, and they're not watching. I don't think really anybody is watching that anymore other than for the pure entertainment of it. But when you talk to your Democrat friends and you say, listen, let's use an example. Like I said, the $20 million on Sesame Street in Iraq, and you go to your Democrat friends, probably a lot that are in California that just had catastrophic wildfires, and you go, all right, so you got people in North Carolina that still don't have a home to go back to. They're still dealing with flood ramifications. You got houses burned down, and people still wondering where their pets are in California. And we're spending $20 million for Sesame Street in Iraq in the hopes that Sesame Street and Big Bird will make them hate us less. Do your Democrat friends go, you're right, we need to keep sending the $20 million over there. Screw America. Let's bring Sesame Street to the Middle East?
So much to say about this one. They don't actually say that because, again, that's not what they're seeing. So here's the story that I dealt with at Super Bowl yesterday, was the fact that Elon Musk is running rampant, that he's not elected, that he thinks he's a god, that Trump is allowing him to do whatever he wants. A judge has blocked Elon Musk, and now Elon is demanding that this judge be impeached because Elon is deranged. Nobody is looking at what Elon Musk is actually doing. Now, if we were to talk about USAID and what's really going on there, I think you need to talk to Mike Benz. This guy is exposing the depth of why some of what we perceive as ludicrous and ridiculous, like gay musicals being funded, and who knows, like some crazy.
Most musicals, I would argue a lot of musicals are gay already. So
I would agree with you. Like, all of this absurdity with regard to pop culture, that we're like funding rap music, all of the funding Sesame Street, so much of it, when you really go down this rabbit hole, seems to be about gaining influence and forcing regime change in other parts of the world in order to control their resources. Like it seems quite diabolical to me when you really go down this rabbit hole. I don't really think this is about Sesame Street at all. What I can tell you is I don't really understand it. Mike Benz is absolutely the guy you need to have come on to talk about it because he understands it in depth. And what's scary to me is that I would sit here and say to you, well, now listen, this has been going on for years and years, and Democrats and Republicans have been a part of all of this and these regime changes, and they know this is going on. But the Republicans now are falling into line. Trump's exposing it. He promised he would. He's allowing Elon Musk to do it. He said he'd drain the swamp. This is the swamp. He's draining it. And the Republicans are allowing it to happen for whatever that means and whatever the fallout will be of this. But the Democrats are fighting for it. And that's what's unforgivable. That's the part. You could say this was a co-creation of politicians on both sides.
For sure.
But the fact that they are defending it now is like, oh my God, stop while you're ahead. But point the finger at the red team over there and say, they did this one and they did that one. But it's crazy. I cannot wrap my head around the logic of how they are handling this, because the part where you defend it is absolutely absurd and makes you complicit unquestionably.
They don't even want Elon to take a look at where the money is going. That should raise the hair on people's arms. They don't want you to know what this money is being spent on. If they looked and they're like, this money is going to Africa to help the impoverished, to help with vaccines, and to help with disease, and to help with this, that, and the other, people would be like, all right, you know what? This is worthwhile. We want to help. We're a very compassionate, generous nation. But when you look in the books and you're seeing the actual crap that it's going to, at the detriment, I would argue, of people who actually need it, that's indefensible, to your point. So we had the big pre-Super Bowl interview, Bret Baier with Donald Trump, and Bret just flat out asked him if he trusts Elon. I thought this was a really interesting response. I want to play it for our audience.
Places that they're giving this money. So I don't know if it's kickbacks or what's going on, but the people, look, I ran on this, and the people want me to find it. And I've had a great help with Elon Musk, who's been terrific.
Bottom line, you say you trust him.
Trust Elon? Oh, he's not gaining anything. In fact, I wonder how he can devote the time to it. He's so into it. But I told him do that. Then I'm going to tell him very soon, like maybe in 24 hours, to go check the Department of Education. He's going to find the same thing. Then I'm going to go to the military. Let's check the military. We're going to find billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud and abuse. And, you know, the people elected me on that.
How can anyone argue against that, especially when he lays it out so plainly? We're going to find the waste, fraud, and abuse, and we're going to expose it for the American people to see. That's transparency.
Here would be my answer, because I think this is deeper than waste. It's definitely fraud, and it's definitely abuse. But there is no question that there are special interests who are somehow profiteering off what USAID has been doing. And these guys are making campaign contributions, and therefore you're seeing outrage from these Democrats. And could it be something else? I mean, you tell me, what could it possibly be? As you mentioned, if it was about doing good in the developed world, well, then start by doing good here in America. I really don't think that's it. I really think that it is much deeper, and it has to do with like the National Endowment for Democracy, funding, culture that is. Mike Benz was talking about this actually in a podcast I was listening to the other day, that USAID funded rap music that was designed to sow distrust in the government, where they funded the music, and then incite a riot in the street and tell people how to riot in the street. So think about what's really going on there. We'll look at it and we're like, they're funding rap music in Somalia or whatever it might be. But really, it's like, how do we overthrow the government there and then get a hold of the resources there? That's what I truly believe is going on when you dig a little deeper. And I wish I could explain it to you in a way that somebody like a Tulsi Gabbard or somebody like a Mike or your audience, because I'm sure you actually understand it better than I do. But I just think what you're seeing is way beyond what seems absurd. I think it's much darker than that. I think that's what the reason that Elon is so driven. It's more than balancing a budget. It is a fundamental shift. And when you're siphoning off money from the American taxpayers to go into things like the military industrial complex, or I'll give you one more example. I'm sorry, I know I'm rambling. I actually worked for the United Nations Refugee Agency, and I stayed at a refugee camp in the Congo. And this had to do with the civil war going on in South Sudan. So they were showing me what all of these USAID programs were around farming. And it all had to do with billions of dollars going towards genetically engineered seeds and all of the chemicals to support that. So who's profiteering? Who are these lords of poverty? Big ag companies like Monsanto, for example. That's the kind of stuff I think is really going on here. And I don't have the depth of knowledge to lay it out in detail. But the fact that the Democrats are not saying, okay, this kind of evil, this kind of corruption, it's time for a new dawn and a new day. Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's turn things around. Let's stop allowing taxpayer dollars to go to big ag and the military industrial complex and all of these things that are perceived as aid and goodwill. It's not at all. It is about lords of poverty exploiting people in the developed world and siphoning off our taxpayer dollars to get rich. That's what I think is happening here.
That, and I think if you look under the hood, there might be some people making some really good salaries that they're not really doing a whole lot, but they're living off of this, and they're afraid that their lifestyle might change a little bit if they actually have to do what they're supposed to do, which is provide aid to impoverished nations and actually help people. But another thing that I'm very perplexed about is I think it's dying down, but there were some folks last week that were upset that Donald Trump said, you know what, women's sports are for women, and that's just how it's going to be. We're going to protect women's sports. He's surrounded by a lot of young female athletes. They're cheering him on. They're so excited. I would argue one of the most feminist presidents we've ever had with that move alone, saying, women, I'm going to give you your sports back. Now, who would have thought a Republican president would be the most feminist, at least of my lifetime? But, you know, there are others who are mad about this, and Tim Walz' daughter, she's got a big following, I guess, on social media, Hope Walz. She took to social media to make this video about her concerns. Let's take a listen to those.
Signing an executive order that pertains to 1% of the population is not protecting women. It's setting a dangerous precedent, and it is dangerous for the trans community, women, minorities, anyone who is not a straight white man. We are talking about human beings, and the president of the United States is targeting them just because he thinks it gains him political points or whatever. Because this thing that he's so worried about it's not real. It doesn't affect the people that he's trying to protect. It hurts them. Like, seriously, I think a lot of us need to open up a history book, because what this is, what's going on right now is textbook. It's textbook. And truly it's boring, and it's loser behavior. I have never felt unsafe around a trans person. I have felt unsafe around men. So maybe let's deal with that. If these people that are in charge right now were really the big, strong, manly leaders that they claim to be, they wouldn't be doing things like this. They'd mind their own business, do what they need to do. They would not be doing this.
I don't know if she's aware of this. I'm going to break some news for her. I hope she's watching. She's not afraid of trans people, but she's afraid of some men. Who wants to tell her that it's the men who are pretending to be women? They're men, Hope. That's the point.
I would do this one. XY chromosome equals man. XX chromosomes equals woman. So did I cover it? Do you think that's clear enough? This one, I promised myself. I keep talking about the necessity to take the high road, to approach all of these conversations with empathy, to stick to the facts. You know, it's like, all right, let's talk about the science here. Let's not get emotional. Let's try to be empathetic to both sides so we can win the argument. But I swear to you, when I see stuff like this, it pisses me off, because this is a person that is simply virtue signaling and is showing no empathy, none, to the biological females who have worked their entire lives to get on the podium, to get the scholarship, to get the endorsement deal. And yes, transgender people deserve respect and to live a life of dignity, but their personal choices do not supersede the rights of biological women in sports. It just doesn't. And if we were to look at some of the tent poles of sports, we've got inclusion. Yes, that's very important. I get that one. But there's also a fair and equal playing field and safety. So when you're prioritizing those three things, safety comes first, fair playing field comes next, and then inclusion. And by the way, nobody is saying that transgender athletes can't play sports, but why don't they take the disadvantage, biologically speaking, and then play with biological males, and you could be a transgender female. Go ahead. You take the hit. There's the inclusion piece. So why is it not fair then? Because you're uncomfortable? Well, the biological females are uncomfortable. Well, because it's not fair to you because you're on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, and a male that isn't has advantages? Well, it's also not fair that the biological female doesn't have the physiological advantages that the transgender female has. And this is irrefutable. I have steelmanned this argument into the ground. I have looked at 19 different studies with sports medicine doctors, and I owned a sports medicine facility. This is a non-starter. The earth is not flat. I can sooner sell your audience on the validity of chemtrails. It's absolute bullshit. I cannot have this argument anymore. You are wrong scientifically, and you are an asshole for not having the same empathy for all the biological females that have suffered, including the ones that got punched in the face during the Olympics. This one just God.
Well, the American people are with you. 70% of American people agree on this. And I would love to see a Democrat, because Democrats lost on this issue. I would love to see a Democrat come challenge this executive order and be like, no, they might try in California. But outside of California, I don't think there are going to be many Democrats raising their hand like, no, we need to bring the men back in the locker room and the restroom and the women's sports. I don't think they're going to do it. A couple of years when woke makes a comeback, because it will, I think maybe that'll be the time. But at least for now, there's going to be a couple good years where women can actually have their own sports and spaces. And those women that are doing that, I hope they understand that the most feminist president of their lifetime, Donald J. Trump, is the one that made sure that they had that. Shouldn't have had to do it, but he did. I give him a lot of credit. In closing, I know you fled California, but I do have to ask you, because I'm really confused by something. A couple weeks ago, I saw an awakening in California when Donald Trump came to California, and people were like, oh my God, he's coming and he's going to let us rebuild our homes and go to the sites of our homes that were burned down, and he wants to get this done fast. And I saw people being like, yes, our leadership sucks, and Donald Trump, we need him. And then now I'm seeing Gavin Newsom allocating $50 million to protect illegal immigrants in the state, and I'm really confused. And I'm seeing it go back the other way. I'm seeing people protest on the freeway for illegal immigrants and for men and women's sports. And I'm like, I thought California was on the right track. We're on the wrong track again.
Here's the answer to this one. It is how you approach the issues. And I'm trying to illustrate that point in the way that I tackle them personally, by not getting angry like I just did, and not calling names and not swearing. So what I mean is, when Gavin Newsom makes a complete mess of the state and Karen Bass makes a complete mess of the state, just allow it to be a mess. And then let's have a recall, and then let's put somebody in there who's qualified to fix all of these problems. But the issue is when you turn around and say, it's the Democrats. Well, there's a lot of people here who are lifelong Democrats. So now their hackles go up. They become defensive. They're incapable of seeing what's right in front of them. And they start telling you that you're an idiot and you're a climate change denier. And they point the finger back. You can't argue that way, even though you want to, even though it might make sense, even though it might be the absolute truth. The way it needs to happen is diplomacy. And I'll give you one more example. There are certain very popular people on the Republican Party, right? And now we're saying, okay, we're going to protect biological women in sports. Wonderful. But then some people on the right are like, tranny this and tranny that. And you're like, oh God, this is bad. Don't do that.
I agree with you.
That is going to make people like me, I'm like, oh, that's not good. Because that's like saying the N-word. It's really not cool. It's one thing to point out that something's not fair, that I respect all transgender people. I want them to live the life they want to live, and I'll fight for their ability to do it. However, when they play in sports with biological females, it is an unfair advantage. This is the truth. There are safety issues, and it's something that we cannot deny. So it's how you tackle these issues. And again, if I could give one more example, I understand that with air traffic control and everything going on over there, the DEI stuff is madness. I get it, but I would wait a minute. Let's mourn everybody. Yep. Let's get through what happened. And then over time, all of that stuff will get exposed. But the first thing that's going to occur is that people are going to say, look at you, you're politicizing this. People died. This is why you're disgusting. And this is why I can never move over to the right. I'm telling you, how these battles are fought over the next 2 years is going to make or break the things that he's trying to accomplish.
You're exactly
People need to
right.
think about that, not gloat and take the higher ground, even though I failed in the second half of your show.
Well, listen, there are things, it's just picking your battles. There are things that are worth fighting for, and common sense and sanity are worth fighting for, but you don't have to go out of your way to offend people, because that actually doesn't produce the results that we want it to produce. We want to get DEI out of things because we want merit to reign supreme, but that doesn't mean that we want to end diversity. That's not the goal. And unfortunately, with the way that some people on this side of the aisle communicate, they go too far because they like to incite a reaction rather than actually make progress. And I have the same frustration. You and I are on the exact same page with that. Not everything is DEI. Not everything is the fault of DEI. There are some things that are, but don't cry wolf, because then you make your whole argument look phony, stupid, and offensive. We're never going to get anywhere with hearts and minds by just setting out to offend people. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. I will offend Gavin Newsom, though, because he is an idiot, and he needs to know that. But you are not an idiot, and I always appreciate you being so honest and transparent and forthright and passionate. Thank you so much for taking the time with me today on our very first broadcast on FoxNews.com. Thank you so much, Jillian Michaels.
Thank you. Speak to you soon.
Good to see you. I'll see you very soon. All right, folks. Now that we have the full transcript and the full cut of Kamala's pre-election 60 Minutes interview, well, let me just say, we didn't just dodge a bullet, we dodged a crater. It's time for final thoughts. Kamala's political career is over, and I really hate to dredge up the past, but since the media members who covered for her and covered for Sleepy Joe are still cosplaying as journalists, well, this is important. As part of the FCC's probe into CBS and 60 Minutes after their deceptive and downright dirty cut and paste job, we now have access to the full and unedited cut and accompanying transcript of that October 2024 Kamala interview. So in case you forgot what they did, let me refresh your memory. The raw transcript showed CBS News had aired only the first half of her response to 60 Minutes correspondent Bill Whitaker's question about Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not listening to the Biden administration in a preview clip that aired on Face the Nation, but aired only the second half of her response during the primetime special. They so kindly cut down her word salad to make Kamala appear less shallow and vapid. They sure tried anyway. Watch the clips and see the difference for yourself.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening. The Wall Street Journal said that that your administration has repeatedly been blindsided by Netanyahu. And in fact, he has rebuffed just about all of your administration's entreaties.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region. And we're not going to stop doing that. We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Let me just add the real tragedy here, and I know I'm not the only one thinking it. CBS edited it. They cut it to pieces. They rearranged the crap out of it. And Kamala still sounded dumb as a rock, but that's not the point. The point is that weeks before a presidential election, CBS purposefully rearranged and edited clips of an interview with a candidate and potential president to make her sound more appealing and less dumb to viewers and voters. You know, I really thought the biggest media scandal of the last 4 years was the Joe Biden brain failure cover-up, but this might actually be worse. These media hacks knew Kamala was and is dumb as a rock and incapable, but they did the most to cover it up. And now going forward, we're supposed to trust them to report fairly and accurately on the issues that matter most. But let me just say this in closing. I am so dang relieved the American people were and are too smart for this. Too smart to be fed this BS from supposed trusted media outlets. They thought they could pull the wool over our eyes and get away with it, but they were mistaken. And now their ratings and their public humiliation will be their reckoning. Those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in live tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern on outkick.com as well as foxnews.com digital. Also catch full episodes of this show on Fox Nation whenever you like. Please also like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.